They thought they were getting a deal. A beautiful Victorian home on a quiet New England street, abandoned, affordable, and too good to pass up. But the house came with one rule. Written in the fine print of the contract, the framed photograph labelled House Companion Number 4 is not to be moved, covered, or altered in any way. In the guest bedroom hangs a portrait of a clown, black and white, smiling, watching. The longer they stay, the more the portrait changes. Its face reacts to their arguments, their secrets. Not because it's haunted, but because the house is remembering. This is the clown that comes with the house. A true horror sleep story for adults. Daniel Park liked to joke that they didn't buy the house. It found them. A 4-bedroom Victorian in Deerbrook, Massachusetts, perched on a soft slope with a sagging porch and flaking green trim. The kind of house that looked picturesque if you squinted through nostalgia and rot. Mara hadn't been sold right away. The siding needed replacing, the backyard was overgrown, and there was a peculiar smell in the attic like spoiled apples and wet plaster. But the price was impossible to ignore. $180,000 for a property that could easily go for twice that once restored. It was a foreclosure. Tied up in probate for years, the realtor, a hollow-eyed woman named Jill Haskins, had explained, "We're just glad to have it moving again." The inspection had passed, barely. Nothing major. Old wiring, slight foundation tilt, outdated plumbing, the usual ghosts of a house built in 1901. Still, the day of closing, Jill handed them the keys and a slim packet of paperwork with a strange hesitation. "There is," she said, "a clause in the sale contract I want to make sure you're aware of." Daniel raised an eyebrow. Jill tapped the final page. Her nails were short and pink, bitten down. "This paragraph here, about the framed portrait in the second-floor guest bedroom." Mara leaned in. It read, open quote, "The buyer agrees not to alter, remove, cover, destroy, or relocate the item referred to in the property inventory as House Companion Number 4, located on the east wall of the second-floor guest bedroom. Any breach of this clause will void protections afforded to the buyer under Section 14, non-disclosure of past incidents." Close quote. Mara blinked. "That's oddly specific." Jill laughed, but it sounded thin. "It's just one of those old house quirks. Probably meant something back when it was rented. Some legal leftover. I wouldn't worry about it." Daniel smirked. "So what is it, a ghost?" Jill's smile didn't reach her eyes. They moved in on a grey Thursday in October. The moving truck arrived early. The men grunted their way up the porch steps with boxes of books, second-hand furniture, and a red leather couch with a scratch across the back. Daniel directed traffic. Mara unpacked kitchen items and set up lamps, trying to push light into the corners. By nightfall, they were too tired to cook. They ate Thai takeout, cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes, the windows dark and bare. "Okay," Daniel said, wiping peanut sauce from his fingers. "Tell me you saw it." Mara glanced up. "Saw what?" "The portrait." She rolled her eyes. "How could I not? I was hoping it was a joke." They both laughed, but it didn't quite stick. The guest bedroom was down the hallway to the left of the staircase, opposite the main bathroom. Small, pale wallpaper patterned with little grey vines, a single window overlooking the backyard, and on the east wall, centred, framed in simple wood trim, was a black and white photo of a clown. A man in a full 1950s costume, pinstripe shirt, exaggerated buttons, round nose, white painted face. Not smiling with teeth, just a tight, subtle grin. The kind that made you feel like you were part of a joke you didn't want to understand. His eyes were shadowed, hard to read. One hand held a balloon string. The balloon itself was out of frame. Below the image, in fading red script, House Companion Number 4. Mara had stared at it for several seconds longer than she meant to. "It's creepy," she had said simply. Daniel nodded. "But kind of amazing too, right? It's so dated. It's like something out of a psychology textbook." "Why is it allowed to stay?" Daniel shrugged. "Because some lawyer said so. They debated taking it down anyway, but ultimately they left it. It wasn't worth the trouble." And Jill's warning, though vague, hung in the back of Mara's mind like a thorn. By the second week, the clown had become part of their routine. Daniel started calling him Cornelius. Mara hated that. "Cornelius doesn't blink," Daniel would whisper when passing the guest room. "Cornelius knows things. he'd say while brushing his teeth. Mara laughed along, but privately she avoided the guest room at night. There was a strange coldness in there. Not dramatic, just persistent. She'd turned the radiator valve fully open. Nothing changed. The window was sealed. The vent blew warm air. Still, it stayed cold. Sometimes she'd walk past and swear she saw something out of place in the photo. A shift in posture, a slight turn of the head. But when she looked directly, it was the same. Always the same. One morning, while Daniel was at work, Mara brought laundry into the guest room to fold on the bed. She paused to look at the clown. His eyes seemed sharper today, or maybe the photo had been cleaned. The light was hitting it differently. The grin looked slightly deeper. A wrinkle that hadn't been there before curved under the right eye. She turned away. Folded shirts. Socks. Her earbuds were in. Some podcast about hauntings in Georgia. Then she looked up again and froze. She could see her own reflection in the glass of the clown's frame. Nothing strange, except that her reflection wasn't folding laundry. It was staring back at her, smiling. She didn't tell Daniel right away. She told herself it was exhaustion, stress, post-move jitters, her mind playing tricks. Nothing more. But she started closing the guest bedroom door at night. Daniel noticed. "Clown getting to you?" he joked. "Just don't like it open," she said. He shrugged. "We could always put a little curtain over it." She looked at him sharply. "Don't," his eyebrows raised. Okay, just a suggestion." On Halloween, they handed out candy to 3 kids and 1 teenager wearing a cheap devil mask. Quiet neighborhood. No foot traffic. By 9, they turned off the porch light and curled up on the couch to watch an old horror movie. Around 10:30, Daniel went upstairs to brush his teeth. Mara followed, yawning. She paused outside the guest bedroom. The door was open. She was sure, absolutely sure, that she'd closed it earlier. She stepped inside. The room was still. The air had that same soft coldness, like breath caught between exhale and scream. The photo hung where it always had. She approached it and noticed something she hadn't before. There was a tiny shadow cast from the clown's nose, just under the nostril, a shadow that didn't align with the light source above. She turned her head, adjusted the angle. Still there. Wrong direction. She reached up and touched the glass. It was warm. She left the room quickly, didn't tell Daniel, didn't sleep well. The next morning, Daniel asked her something odd. "Did you laugh in your sleep last night?" She looked up from her coffee. "No, why?" "You were giggling around 2 a.m., kind of quietly, almost like whispering, but with laughter in it." She stared at him. "I thought maybe you were dreaming." She didn't respond. She was remembering something, just barely. A dream, yes. She'd been standing in the guest room, facing the photo, and the clown had leaned forward, spoken something in her ear. She couldn't remember the words, just the warmth of his breath. Mara stayed home more than Daniel. He worked in the city 4 days a week, commuting by train, while she'd recently shifted her freelance marketing clients to a lighter schedule. The plan was to use the fall and winter to settle in, renovate slowly and keep costs down. It was, on paper, the dream they'd saved for. But the house didn't feel like a dream. Not anymore. It started with the way Cornelius, she still refused to say the name aloud, seemed to notice her. That's how she described it to herself. Notice. She'd walk past the guest bedroom on her way to the bathroom and feel the air change, as if the photo had exhaled. She'd pause. Look in. Nothing obvious. The clown was still there. Same smirk, same faded pinstripe shirt, same impossible-to-place balloon string. But the photo felt reactive now. Not like art, not static, like glass watching from the wall. She tested it once, stood directly in front of the photo for nearly 5 minutes, arms folded, face neutral. At first, the sensation was just discomfort, the kind that comes from proximity to something uncanny. Her heart ticked faster, her scalp tingled, normal enough. Then she noticed it. The eyes, they didn't change position, didn't roll, but the light in them seemed different. She couldn't articulate it. Not red, not glowing, just sharper, more aware. She leaned forward until her face was inches from the glass. Her own reflection stared back, expressionless. But just as she turned away, she thought she saw the reflection smile. That evening, she took a photo of the portrait on her phone. Nothing special, just to show a friend, maybe post it as a joke. But when she opened the camera app, it immediately crashed. She reopened it. A static grey screen. She tried again. Same thing. She switched to video mode and the phone restarted itself. When it came back on, the battery had dropped 40%. She went to her photo gallery. There was a new image there, one she hadn't taken. It was a blurry photo of her, standing in the guest room doorway. But in the photo, her face wasn't hers. It was stretched, too wide, smile contorted, eyes uneven. Wearing a faint smear of white paint, she deleted it immediately. Backed out of the room, closed the door and walked downstairs in a daze. Daniel came home late that night, drenched from a downpour. Mara didn't mention the photo or the phone. She told herself she needed more sleep. Days passed. The guest room remained cold. The photo remained untouched. But Mara began to feel like she was changing. Her reflection looked tired, not in the usual way. The bags under her eyes were too dark, too sunken. Her skin seemed pulled tighter, as if her face had learned to hold tension in new ways. She caught herself smiling for no reason, mid-task, unprompted. The corners of her mouth twitching upward in an unnatural mimicry of happiness. It would only last a second, but when it passed, she'd feel winded, as if something had just left her body. She began avoiding mirrors. Even the microwave's reflective door started to unnerve her. But the worst was the guest room mirror. The old one, built into the vanity table that had come with the house. It didn't show her the way other mirrors did. It always added something extra, an impression behind her, a blur, a colour. Once, she could have sworn she saw a balloon string curling up behind her ear. Daniel noticed her anxiety. "You've been jumpy lately," he said one morning over coffee. "I'm fine," she replied too quickly. "You're not sleeping. You keep checking that room." She said nothing. "Do you want me to take it down?" "No," she said sharply. "We're not allowed." Daniel looked surprised. "I was kidding." "I'm not." He raised his hands. "Okay." Later that afternoon, while Daniel was at work, Mara stood in front of the clown photo again. She had a notepad and pen in her hand. She was trying something new, writing down her impressions, trying to treat it like a case study. That's how she coped when things felt out of control. She tried to classify them. Observation 1. Subject appears unchanged physically, but altered emotionally. Observation 2. Environment surrounding the portrait is 2 to 3 degrees cooler than neighbouring rooms. Observation 3. Subject appears more alive when viewer is alone, especially at night. Observation 4. Changes are subtle, possibly imagined, but consistent. Observation 5. The portrait seems to respond to emotional stimuli. She stared at that last line, then crossed it out, then rewrote it. Observation 5. The portrait wants something. That night, Daniel had a dream. He woke with a gasp and sweat soaked into his pillow. Mara stirred beside him. "What's wrong?" she mumbled. He shook his head. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. He'd been in the guest room, alone, staring at the photo, and the clown was talking, not out loud, inside his head. He didn't remember the words, just the tone, warm, friendly, like someone reminding you of something you've always known. He didn't tell Mara. He wasn't sure it had been a dream. The next morning, Daniel stayed home from work. He said he felt sick, but really, he was preoccupied. He kept glancing toward the stairs. Finally, Mara snapped. "Just go look at it." He blinked. "What?" "That's what you're thinking about, right? The photo?" Daniel rubbed his eyes. "You're not imagining it. I feel it too." "Feel what?" He looked up at her. "It's getting closer." Together they went to the guest room. The door was open. The air was freezing. They stepped inside. The clown looked the same, mostly. But the smile was broader now, less subtle. And the background, once a flat grey, now seemed textured, almost three-dimensional. Faint lines behind the clown suggested walls. A ceiling. It looked like he was sitting in a room. Mara stepped closer. The frame was dusty. She wiped the edge with her sleeve and found something etched there. Small, shallow letters scratched into the wood. Companion observation, phase 4 complete. She recoiled. Daniel's face drained of colour. "Was that there before?" he asked. Mara shook her head. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Daniel said, "We should talk to someone. The realtor, maybe, or the county clerk. Find out what this house was used for." "I don't think that'll help." "Why?" She met his eyes. "Because I think the clown already knows what we're going to do." That night, Mara slept in the living room. She kept the lights on, wrapped herself in 2 blankets, left the TV running on a cooking show, volume low. Somewhere around 2 a.m. she drifted off, and woke up to laughter. Not loud, not shrill, a soft male chuckle like someone reminiscing at a dinner party. It came from upstairs. She lay there frozen. Then she heard footsteps, slow, measured, crossing the hallway above, heading toward the stairs, then stopping, just above her. She stared at the ceiling, waiting. The sound didn't return, but she didn't sleep again. The next day, Mara checked her phone gallery again. There was a new photo. She hadn't taken it. It was a picture of the guest bedroom, only this time the clown was gone from the frame. The photo was empty. The caption underneath, automatically generated by her photo app, read FaceTime 2:01 a.m. The following morning, Daniel didn't go to work. Neither did Mara. They didn't talk much over breakfast. The kitchen felt tight, like something invisible stood in the corner, listening. Even the walls felt closer than usual, as if the house had started holding its breath. They both knew it without saying. The picture was changing, and the house was not just haunted, it was remembering, and it wanted them to remember too. Daniel took the initiative. "I'm going to the town records office today," he said, not looking up from his coffee. "I want to know how many owners this place had before us." Mara nodded. "I'll stay here. I want to look around upstairs. I think there's more to that room than just the picture." Daniel paused. "You sure you'll be okay?" She offered a thin smile. "Honestly? No, but I think it's worse not knowing." He stood, pulled on his jacket and kissed her forehead before leaving. She didn't say it, but the house felt lighter the moment he stepped out the door. She went upstairs to the guest bedroom with a flashlight and gloves. The photo was still in place, but it looked different again. The clown's background had deepened further. Now it was unmistakable. The photo didn't just have a backdrop. It showed a room, an actual room. Square-tiled floor, dark corners, a window drawn with blinds. And the clown's posture had changed. He was now slightly leaned forward, closer, like he was aware he was being watched, and liked it. Mara scanned the room carefully. Her focus fell on the closet. It had always seemed a little off. Too shallow for the layout of the house. She opened it and examined the back wall. Old cedar boards. She knocked gently, hollow. Heart racing, she stepped back, returned with a small claw hammer, and pried at the edges. One board creaked, then gave way. Behind it, a thin crawl space, about 2 feet deep and 5 feet across, running along the wall behind the bedroom. She slid inside. The flashlight beam caught something immediately. An old reel-to-reel recorder covered in dust and cobwebs. Next to it, a pile of yellowed folders and a box labelled Phase Records House Companion Program. She dragged the box out into the bedroom and opened the lid. Inside were folders, each marked with a different family name, along with dates and short descriptions. McClellan 1972. Initial test subjects. Moderate success. Companion image updated quarterly. Incident, refusal to comply with sleep conditioning. Valdez 1975. Subject B responded well. Subject A terminated participation. Room recoiled. Reassignment failed. Graham 1978. Phase 3. Severe breach. Family removed. And finally, Park 2023. The folder was thin, only 1 page inside. A typed note, new trial initiated after dormant phase. House companion number 4 reinstalled. Emotional responsiveness appears to be returning. Memory seeding effective. Close quote. At the bottom, observation window reopened. She looked up. Observation. She scanned the room again, and that's when she saw it. In the far corner of the ceiling, tucked into a wooden beam, was a small black lens. Not modern. Old 70s or 80s era, but still intact. A camera, pointed directly at the portrait. She turned back to the box and opened the last item, a thin plastic sleeve containing a 5-inch reel labelled Graham Family Final Night. She hesitated, then slid the reel onto the old machine and threaded the tape. The recorder whirred to life. The voice that came through was grainy and distant, like something unearthed from a grave. Open quote. "He moved again. I told you he moved again. He wasn't like that yesterday." Close quote. Open quote. "It's not just the photo. It's in the walls. I heard it talking. It said my name." Close quote. "Child. Can I come out now?" Open quote. A slow, wheezing laugh. "You're doing so well." Close quote. The tape ended. Mara stared at the recorder, her hands ice cold. The child's voice had come from inside the portrait room, and the laugh. She'd heard it before. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in the dusty records office of the Deerbrook Municipal Building. A tired-looking clerk helped him pull the deeds and ownership logs going back 60 years. Daniel scanned the microfiche. 7 owners total. But something strange jumped out. 3 of the listed owners weren't individuals, they were institutions. Mid-State Behavioral Research Institute, 1971 to 1979. Family Harmonics Initiative, 1981 to 1984. House Memory Project, C, 1992 to 1995. He circled the dates, asked the clerk about them. The woman shrugged. Old grants, I think. Funded studies. There was a college in town, used to do a lot of psychological research. Shut down in the early 2000s, left behind a bunch of weird stuff. Daniel asked to pull any associated files. There was only one attached to the last LLC. A redacted memo, partially legible, open quote, subject families were provided routine domestic settings, surveillance maintained through companion image protocol, primary goal behavioral containment through internalized observation, secondary induced memory conditioning, close quote. And the last sentence, fully blacked out, except for the words, companion number 4 shows promising emotional reciprocity. Daniel pushed his chair back, heart in his throat. They weren't being haunted, they were being studied. He called Mara on the way home. You were right, he said. You found something? I found enough. That night, they sat at the dining table, surrounded by folders, reels, and their own notes. Daniel laid it out plainly. The house is part of some old behavioral program, like those orphanage conditioning experiments in the 60s, but more immersive. Mara nodded. The clown portrait, it's not decorative, it's a control mechanism, something they use to measure emotional responses. Daniel flipped through the gram file. It changes based on your behavior, your mood. I think it was designed to reflect guilt, maybe, or shame, some kind of feedback loop. Mara whispered, it knows things we've never said aloud. Daniel met her eyes. I think it was supposed to. Later, unable to sleep, Mara returned to the guest room alone. She opened the closet, the crawl space. She stared at the old camera lens, then turned toward the photo. The clown was closer again. Not literally, but the angle had shifted subtly. He now seemed almost at the edge of the frame. His smile showed a hint of teeth. The room behind him was clearer. There was a doorway behind the clown now, open, leading into darkness. Mara lifted her phone to take another picture. This time, the camera worked. She captured it, looked at the result, and froze. In the image, the clown was looking directly at her. His hand had lifted, pressed flat against the inside of the frame, as if waving hello, or blocking her from leaving. Daniel covered the portrait at 10:12 a.m. Just a sheet, an old pillowcase pulled from the linen closet. He used push pins to hang it over the frame like a curtain. Nothing destructive, nothing permanent. Still, the moment it was up, the air in the guest bedroom changed. The temperature didn't drop. The lights didn't flicker. But the pressure in the room tightened, like walking into a place you weren't supposed to see, or like realizing someone else was already watching. Mara stood behind him, arms crossed, chewing the edge of her thumbnail. This feels like a bad idea, she said. Daniel didn't argue, but he didn't take it down either. Nothing happened. Not at first. That night the house went dark at 2:17 a.m. No wind, no storm, just a sudden blackout. All lights, all appliances, all power gone in an instant. Even their phones dropped signal. Wi-Fi dead, static on the radio. They sat up in bed, listening. The silence wasn't complete. It had texture, as if something large was humming beneath it, just out of range, and then a sound from upstairs, a soft thump, followed by another, and then dragging. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and went to check. Mara followed halfway up the stairs, then stopped. The hallway was empty. The guest bedroom door was open. Daniel stepped inside. The sheet was gone. Not on the floor, not folded, not anywhere. The clown was visible again, framed as usual. But this time it was fully in colour. That was the moment everything changed. Over the next 3 days, the house turned. Subtle things at first. Lights that dimmed when you entered certain rooms, electrical outlets that stopped working, batteries draining in minutes. The HVAC system began behaving erratically. Cold spots moved around the house like invisible people standing still. The upstairs bathroom mirror fogged when no one had used the shower. And the clown? His smile had teeth now. Blunt, square, slightly yellowed. Human teeth. Too many of them. Mara stopped entering the guest room entirely. She kept the door shut, towel stuffed under the crack, and avoided even glancing at the handle when walking past. Daniel tried to remain rational. "It's some kind of psych experiment residue," he said. "They wired this place to manipulate people's moods. That's what the companion program was, right? Behavior shaping through ambient cues. A permanent Skinner box." But the longer they stayed, the less they believed their own theories. Because the clown wasn't just observing anymore. It was reacting. Mara proved it on a Thursday afternoon. She set up an old camera, an actual film camera, not digital, and aimed it at the clown portrait. She loaded it, focused the lens, then stood in front of the frame and whispered aloud, "I know what you are." Click. She waited. "I want you out of my house." Click. Then she turned, left the room, and closed the door. When the film developed the next day, there were 2 photos. In the first, the clown was there, staring straight ahead, monochrome smirking. In the second, his face was blurred. Not motion blur. Not light exposure. Just smeared. Like his face had tried to move away from the camera. That night, Daniel found the VHS tapes. He had been tracing old cabling in the basement, trying to figure out where the camera in the guest room led. He pulled back a loose section of drywall behind the water heater and discovered a hidden cabinet. Inside, 6 VHS tapes. No labels, just timestamps. 06/14/1995, 2:13 a.m. 12/02/1978, 4:07 a.m. A 3/19/2023, 3:01 a.m. And 3 others. He brought them upstairs and dusted off the old TV VCR combo that had come with the house. He inserted the 1985 tape first. Static. Then grainy footage. The guest bedroom. A couple asleep on a twin bed. One of them stirred. They sat up, looked at the wall, the clown portrait. Then slowly walked to it, touched the frame, and whispered something into the glass. The footage ended with the person standing still for almost 20 minutes, motionless, smiling. He tried the 1978 tape. Similar setup, different couple, different room layout, but the same outcome. One person asleep, the other drawn to the clown, then speaking to it, then standing in still silence, eyes wide and unfocused. Then Daniel played the third tape. 03/19/2023, the 3:01 a.m., his own timestamp. He turned to Mara. This was last week. The video showed their current bedroom, dark. The door creaked open. Daniel entered the frame. Eyes half-lidded, sleepwalking or something close. He walked into the guest room, stood in front of the clown and smiled. Then he whispered something. They turned up the volume. There was no sound, but Mara lip-read it first. "I won't forget you," he had said. They didn't speak for a long time. Then Mara stood and said, "It's changing us." Daniel asked, "How far will it go?" They took the tapes, the folders, everything, packed them into a plastic bin and drove to the local library. They planned to scan them, copy them, maybe send them to someone, a reporter, a researcher, anyone who might believe them. But the moment they tried to scan the files, the power surged. The computer shut down. Then the fire alarm triggered. They were escorted out. When they returned to their car, the bin was gone. Nowhere in the parking lot. Just disappeared, as if they'd never brought it. That night, Mara heard scratching inside the guest bedroom walls. Soft at first, then more deliberate. She pressed her ear to the drywall and heard whispering. Her name. Over and over. Daniel found a new note the next morning, taped to the inside of the refrigerator door. Not in their handwriting. Block letters, typed on an old typewriter. Open quote, "House companion is not to be covered. House companion must be seen to function. House companion has seen you." Close quote. No envelope. No signature. The note was warm to the touch. At 3:33 a.m. that night, the doorbell rang. Daniel and Mara sat in bed unmoving. It rang again, then once more. 3 total. They didn't answer. The next morning, there was a single balloon on their front steps, bright red, tied with twine. The tag attached said, "Companion check-in." Mara lost her reflection 2 days later. She looked into the upstairs bathroom mirror while brushing her hair, and there was nothing, just the bathroom behind her. Towel rack, sink, no face. She screamed. Daniel ran upstairs, but when he looked, everything was normal. She tried to laugh it off. But that night, in bed, Daniel asked quietly, "Have you noticed how often we smile now?" Mara stared at the ceiling. They hadn't smiled for real in days, and yet their cheeks ached constantly. Their faces remembered the shape, even when they didn't. Daniel tried to cover the clown again. This time the sheet burned. He didn't see flames, just the smell. The black smoke rising from the fabric as it curled and vanished. The wall behind it remained untouched. And the clown? Smiling wider. Teeth fully exposed. Eyes glassy. Room behind him clearer. There were other pictures on his wall now. Frames just like his. All empty. Except one. It held Daniel's face. They no longer referred to it as a photo. They didn't call it Cornelius anymore. They didn't even joke. The image on the wall had evolved beyond anything static. It wasn't a painting. It wasn't a relic. It was a presence, a lens embedded in the house, in them, watching from inside the very structure of their behavior. Mara stopped looking in mirrors altogether. She said she didn't trust what came back anymore. Daniel stopped sleeping. He stayed up late, pacing the living room, every night closer to cracking. His right eye twitched when he thought no one was watching. They tried to leave, once. It was a Wednesday. They packed hastily, documents, laptop, clothes, toothbrushes, nothing more. Threw it all into the car, no real destination in mind, just away. They didn't even lock the front door. But 15 minutes down the road, Mara turned pale. "Do you smell that?" she whispered. Daniel sniffed. Burnt plastic. And then the radio, which had been off, clicked on. No music, just a faint, distant voice. Open quote, "Companion not dismissed. Companion still present." Close quote, "The car died at the intersection of Birch and Main. No power, no steering, no engine." Daniel sat silently behind the wheel while Mara wept into her hands. They called a tow truck. The mechanic said the alternator was fine, the battery full, the wiring untouched. The car started normally the next morning. They returned home. The portrait greeted them. It had changed again. The clown was now fully in colour, every detail crisp. His hat had been removed. The face behind the makeup was no longer blurred. It was Daniel's. The mouth, though, wasn't his. It belonged to someone else, too wide, too pink, grinning with impossible serenity. Mara didn't come out of the bedroom the next morning. When Daniel opened the door, she was sitting on the floor, her back to the dresser, arms wrapped around her knees. She was humming, slowly, childishly. The tune had no name, but Daniel recognized it anyway. He'd heard it in a dream, once, the first week after moving in. It was the sound the clown made when no one was speaking, like a default hum, a looped lullaby, a program resetting. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She looked up, smiled. Her lips twitched at the corners, like she was struggling to hold the shape. "Still," she whispered. Daniel knelt beside her. Her smile faltered. "Stillness," she said again. "I figured it out. That's what it wants. Stillness is the lesson." He put a hand on her arm. It was cold. She didn't blink. "Don't move," she whispered. "It gets worse when you move." That night, Daniel found a second photo, not on the wall, but tucked inside the top drawer of the desk in the hallway. It was printed on thick, archival paper, black and white. A woman sitting on the bed in the guest room, mouth open in mid-sentence. He recognized her. One of the earlier companion families. He remembered the file, Graham, 1978. Her eyes were wide, her mouth smiling, but not naturally. Not like a moment of happiness caught on film, more like a command being obeyed. On the back of the photo was a stamp, open quote, "Approved for companion merge," close quote, and beneath it, handwritten in red pencil, "House companion number 3 retired, room ready for reassignment." Daniel turned the photo over again. The wall behind the woman looked exactly like theirs. Same wallpaper, same position, same clown. But now it all made sense. Each house companion was never just a picture. It was a summary, a synthesis. The room didn't just reflect behavior, it absorbed it. One family after another, observed, conditioned, contained, until the house somehow learned, and now it was ready to teach. The next morning, Mara was gone. Her clothes were still there, her shoes lined up in the hall, no signs of struggle, no broken glass, just the faint smell of old wax and lavender. Daniel called the police. They searched the house. Nothing. They found no footprints, no signs of exit. Just an extra reflection in the guest room mirror. The clown. And beside him, Mara. Daniel lost 3 days. Not sleep. Time. He couldn't remember them. They vanished. He found crumbs in the kitchen, the TV was on, his toothbrush was wet, but he couldn't recall a single thing. On the fourth day, he woke up in the guest room, fully dressed. Sitting on the floor beneath the portrait, the clown's face was now his entirely, but younger, fresher, more perfect, more pleased. Below it, the label had changed, House Companion number 5. He screamed for hours. Nothing in the house moved. He smashed the mirrors, tore out wiring, burned every photo, every folder, every object he could associate with the companion program. The house absorbed it all, silently, like it had done 100 times before. Then one morning, Daniel found something new taped to the front door. Typed, standard format. Open quote, notice of foreclosure. This property has been reassigned to the House Memory Project occupant has been deemed non-responsive. New trial eligible for intake. Room reset in progress. Close quote. Daniel didn't react. He just went to the guest room, sat down and smiled. Stillness. A week later, the house was listed online. $174,000. Historic Victorian. Needs minor cosmetic updates. Quiet street, ideal for first-time buyers. The listing photos included all the usual shots. Kitchen, bedrooms, porch. One showed the guest bedroom, brightly lit. A new portrait on the wall. This one, black and white again. A man in clown makeup, smiling just enough. Framed beneath it, House Companion No. 5. You can cover the mirrors. You can rip out the wires. You can burn the photo. But once the house remembers you, it doesn't forget. Thank you for listening to The Clown That Comes with the House. If the companion ever changes, don't look away. Would you like this paired with